What if I told you that getting ready for, peak physical performance isn't really about pushing past your limits every single day,
Mhm.
or even just about building brute strength? What if it's more like a highly specific, almost counterintuitive kind of dance between work, recovery, and what you put into your body?
Right.
All meticulously designed to make sure you never hit a breaking point you haven't, already mastered.
That's precisely the fascinating paradox we're diving into today. Our mission really is to unpack a truly unique and specialized approach to animal conditioning,
Okay.
specifically game dog treadmill conditioning, as it's detailed in Robert Leem's incredibly meticulous work, The Mill Maker.
The mill maker.
Okay. Now, it's important we state this up front.
Yeah.
Our focus here isn't on the historical context or, the controversial nature of the contest this was developed for. That's not our lane.
Right. Understood. We're looking at the how, the physiology.
Exactly. We're extracting the universal physiological insights from what is, frankly, a highly disciplined system. This isn't just about training an animal to win in the simple sense.
Mm-hmm.
It's about optimizing its entire physiology for maximum sustained effort, making sure it performs at its absolute peak, not just for a moment, but, for the long haul. Think of it like a master class in, extreme physiological optimization.
And our source material for this depth dive, it's incredibly detailed, isn't it? Pretty technical in places.
Oh, very.
But it's full of these surprisingly universal insights into what it truly means to condition a living system for peak performance. So we're going to try and distill these core principles, the practical steps,
Yeah.
make them understandable and honestly quite insightful for anyone curious about achieving peak performance, whether that's in animals or maybe even, themselves. It really speaks to the power of just careful observation and methodical iteration.
And here's where that initial aha moment kind of hits you. This method, it isn't about raw power or just relentless exertion in the way most of us probably imagine conditioning.
Right, not just grinding it out.
No, it's about achieving a state the author calls conditioned maximum stress. And the profound insight here, the real takeaway, is that true conditioning isn't about pushing an animal to its absolute limit in the actual contest.
Okay.
It's about making sure you've already mastered and recovered from that limit countless times in training.
Ah, I see. So the contest feels easier than the training almost.
In a physiological sense, yes. It's this precise orchestration of work, precise recovery, and a highly specific diet, all designed to let the body convert huge amounts of fuel into energy really efficiently and crucially at a low temperature for a long, long time. The idea is to make the most intense moments of a contest feel like, familiar territory, comfortable even, not some uncharted physiological stress zone.
Okay, let's unpack that concept a bit more, because when we think conditioning, our minds jump to intense workouts, weightlifting, sprints, pushing muscles to failure, maybe building massive endurance through just sheer mileage.
Yeah, usual stuff, yeah.
But the mill maker proposes something quite different, something it calls a running keep. That's fundamentally free conditioning. It sounds like it really redefines what preparation even means, focusing less on that brute force
Exactly.
and more on metabolic efficiency.
That's the core. The goal here is astonishingly specific and deeply physiological. It's about conditioning the body to use the most nutrition in the shortest possible time.
Wow.
Imagine like a high-performance engine that can convert vast amounts of fuel into energy with minimal heat loss, running smoothly, powerfully for an incredibly long time. That's the aim.
Okay.
This prepares the dog to stay at what he calls maximum stress, or MS, for as long as it takes in a contest. He isn't just aiming for a dog that performs well for, say, 30 minutes and then fades.
No quick bursts.
No. He wants an animal that can jump to MS right from the start, and even at the end of a really long contest, still have an above-average heart rate. That shows it still has significant physiological reserve.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about preventing that catastrophic running out of gas moment.
And this distinction you mentioned between MS during conditioning versus MS in a contest, you said it's crucial but not the same thing. That sounds a bit contradictory. Can you elaborate on that? Because that feels key.
It is the pivotal insight. It unlocks the whole method, really.
Mm-hmm.
When the author talks about maximum stress during the conditioning phase,
Right.
he specifically means the point where the dog will voluntarily break stride to recover. Because its muscles, its brain, they're becoming oxygen deficient.
Ah, so it's a choice the dog makes based on its body signals.
Exactly. This controlled breaking of stride is the precise physiological signal. Is the body intelligently saying, okay, hang on, I need a moment to resupply.
It's a deliberate, measurable benchmark. a temporary dip that actually helps adaptation.
However, MS expressed in the actual contest means something totally different.
Right.
It means the dog won't have to break stride to recover.
Why not?
Because its heart rate, even at the peak of the contest, has never been higher than it was on any given day during the entire conditioning keep.
No way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, the dog will probably only reach about, say, 2/3 of its conditioned MS heart rate in the contest.
So it's always operating below its trained maximum.
Precisely. The actual event operates comfortably within its established physiological ceiling, and that significantly lengthens the time it can sustain that MS state and drastically shortens recovery periods if and when they do happen.
That's a profound distinction. So during training, you're pushing them to that point of oxygen deficiency to build capacity.
Yes.
But the goal is that in the actual contest, they never hit that same critical wall. It's almost like you're training them to fight in a zone below their maximum trained capacity, which must give them immense reserves and confidence, I imagine.
That's exactly it. And the outcome the author expresses satisfaction with, it goes beyond just winning.
Right.
It's about knowing you've done all I could do for that animal, win or lose. The true mark of success for him is finishing the contest with an above-average heart rate after extended periods of what would be maximum stress for an unconditioned animal.
Wow.
It demonstrates true deep conditioning, not just a win, but a masterful performance that comes from superior preparation.
What's truly fascinating here is that paradigm shift away from, the traditional ideas of strength or gameness, these terms you often hear associated with competitive dogs. Instead, it's entirely about optimizing the internal physiology, enhancing oxygen absorption, maximizing heart function, fine-tuning that metabolic energy conversion. It does raise a big question, though.
Right.
How on earth do you even begin to train for such a specific high-level physiological state? One that focuses so intensely on internal efficiency, not just outward power.
And the promise of this method, it's incredibly compelling for anyone chasing peak performance, really. It aims to prevent the dog from faltering or breaking stride because it has no choice in the matter, meaning that deep physiological exhaustion from within.
Right, the internal breakdown.
Yeah. So if the conditioned dog slows down, it's not because it's running out of steam. It's because its adversary is the one struggling, maybe on the bottom, trying to recover.
Okay.
This meticulous, data-driven approach, it builds immense confidence in the owner. They know they've done everything possible, that they won't do bad ever again because of poor preparation. It fundamentally shifts the focus from the unknowns of the opponent to the known, controllable, optimizable variables of the dog's own internal condition. It's about building this unshakable physiological foundation.
So how do you actually achieve this precise state of conditioned maximum stress? You said the source gives a very clear, almost scientific daily blueprint, the respiratory recovery method. It sounds like it's far from just sticking a dog on a treadmill and hoping for the best.
Oh, it's intensely structured, yes. Not random at all. The foundation is a 15-minute session, specifically tailored for a bulldog in the text, but the principle applies.
Okay.
And the absolute key to progression is the daily heart rate check, right at the 15-minute mark, every single day.
Every day. Okay.
If that heart rate is the same as, or ideally a little less than, the previous day,
That's good.
that indicates a good recovery.
Yeah.
That's your green light. It's the physiological signal that the body has adapted and is ready for a bit more work.
Ah, okay. So with a good recovery, then you add more work.
Exactly. You add just 5 minutes of work. But importantly, it's after a 5-minute cool-down walk following the main 15-minute session.
Got it. 5 more minutes.
And you repeat this precise addition daily.
Yeah.
Add 5 minutes each day, you get a good recovery until you observe what's termed a bad recovery.
And a bad recovery, let me guess, that means the heart rate at 15 minutes is higher than the day before.
Exactly. Higher. That's the signal. Means yesterday was too much work. The system couldn't fully recuperate.
So this specific heart rate feedback is how you define the dog's individual work capacity for that moment. It's like a personalized, real-time stress test.
It is. The animal's own body is dictating the training intensity. It's pure biofeedback.
Wow.
The program continually adds these 5-minute increments, which effectively builds more 15-minute sessions until that bad recovery tells you, okay, this is the max work capacity right now. It's incredibly iterative, data-driven, a continuous calibration, not some rigid fixed schedule you just follow blindly.
It really adapts to the individual animal then, optimizing their specific response day by day, not just forcing a generic plan.
That's the beauty of it.
Let's break down this progressive work schedule step by step, because you said the source is incredibly detailed, like a lab protocol. It starts right when the owner gets home. That itself says a lot about the dedication needed.
Absolutely. Consistency is paramount. The routine begins immediately upon the owner's return. First, dog off the chain, gets a moment of freedom, then walked for 5 minutes to empty out. And this isn't just, for convenience. It's a crucial physiological prep step. Make sure the system is ready before exertion.
Right. Then, onto the treadmill. Dog runs as fast as it can, and then the owner leaves the room. That's interesting. Why leave?
Yes, this is a key part of the free conditioning philosophy. The owner listens. They listen for the distinct sounds of the noisy treadmill they've specifically built or modified.
A noisy treadmill, on purpose.
Yes, it needs to be loud enough that the owner can hear, from another room perhaps, the precise moment the dog changes its stride. That change in sound indicates it's becoming oxygen deficient and needs to rest.
Ah, so the sound is the feedback.
Exactly. That breaking of stride is the first critical physiological signal. When the dog drops into a walk or a long stride to rest and recover, the owner then returns to the room, keeps the dog in rest mode, maybe sits down quietly, does some writing. The noisy treadmill acts as this constant, real-time biofeedback mechanism. Tells the owner exactly when recovery is needed without having to stare at the dog constantly.
Fascinating. So, at the 10-minute mark, the owner leaves again. The dog, having recovered a bit, should be able to break on top again, run faster.
Yeah, with ease, ideally.
Yeah.
Then, when it inevitably breaks stride a second time, settling back into that walk or long stride to rest.
The owner comes back in.
Right. It implies this precise, almost choreographed cycle of work and controlled recovery within just that first 15 minutes.
Okay. Then at the 15-minute mark.
That's the key data point. Owner puts their foot on the mill, just a subtle cue, and checks the dog's heart rate. This 15-minute session, it's the core daily activity, performed every single day of the conditioning keep right up until the match.
Wow, every day.
After the heart rate check, dog comes off the mill, gets that 5-minute cool-down walk, same spot where it emptied out at the start. This consistency builds resilience and provides that critical daily data.
And there's a pre-keep period too, right? Before you even start adding work.
Correct. The source mentions 10 days of pre-keep, just doing that 15-minute session daily to get a solid handle on the heart rate baseline. Understand what's normal for that dog.
Right.
Then, 3 more days of the same 15-minute schedule, just to be absolutely sure that baseline measurement is accurate and consistent. This emphasis on baseline data, accuracy, it feels very scientific.
It really does, like a clinical trial setup.
It is, in a way. So once those pre-keep and baseline days are done, on day 4 of the actual keep, if the heart rate at 15 minutes is the same or less than yesterday,
Good recovery.
good recovery. That's the signal. Add 5 minutes of work. But after the 5-minute cool-down walk,
Yeah, for the walk, okay?
during this added 5-minute bit, the dog should break on top, run hard for a few minutes, that naturally break stride to rest. At the end of those 5 minutes, dog comes off, put up for the day. It's very gradual, preventing overtraining, ensuring adaptation.
So day 5, same process. Check the heart rate after 15 minutes. If it's still good,
Add another 5 minutes to that post-walk work block. Now it's 10 minutes extra work.
okay. And day 6, same thing. If the HR is good, add another 5 minutes.
Exactly. And now, on day 6, that extra work block totals 15 minutes. So you've essentially created a second, complete 15-minute session for the day, separated by the walk.
Ah, okay. 2 sessions.
And this is when the dog will really start to warm up significantly. The author suggests cooling the dog down with a water hose if the weather allows, especially if it's, say, 70 degrees Fahrenheit or more. Highlights the temperature regulation is already becoming a factor.
Right. So those 2 15-minute sessions become the foundation, and the owner keeps adding 5 minutes every day, building towards a third 15-minute session, then maybe a fourth.
Or even a 5th. Always looking for that telltale bad recovery, that heart rate at 15 minutes being higher than the day before.
That's stop sign.
That unequivocally indicates yesterday was too much work. The body didn't fully bounce back. And when that bad recovery finally happens, boom. The owner has precisely identified the dog's maximum sustainable work capacity for that cycle of conditioning.
It's a continuous, dynamic negotiation with the animal's physiology, not just following a chart.
Exactly. So it's not some fixed routine you follow blindly hoping it works. You're constantly adapting based on your dog's daily feedback. It's truly personalized. The dog itself is telling you, through its heart rate.
Right.
Okay, this is what I can handle today. Here's how well I recovered. This is my current ceiling.
Which makes perfect sense. Every animal's different.
And that profound reliance on the animal's feedback leads us directly to the importance of the equipment. You might think, a treadmill's a treadmill.
Yeah, pretty much.
But the source makes a very strong case that the type of treadmill is absolutely critical, essential to the success of this whole thing. The wrong one can actually sabotage your efforts.
Oh, this is fascinating. He specifies needing a free-turning treadmill or an easy-pulling flying jenny, or even just using a bicycle alongside the dog. Why is this specific type of equipment so vital?
It's fundamental to the whole free conditioning idea. A free-turning treadmill allows the dog to hit a very high heart rate, but crucially, without any stress, strain, or tension from fighting the machine itself.
Oh.
The key is the dog can genuinely break stride to recover, because the workload instantly decreases when the dog slows down. There's no constant resistance forcing it to push against exhaustion.
So it can self-regulate its effort easily.
Perfectly put. The dog might get tired, which is the goal, but critically, it will never get weak and stagger around, even if a contest goes over an hour. This allows for a natural, unforced running motion that directly translates to the physiological demands of the contest, encouraging efficient oxygen use rather than just raw power output against resistance.
So what's the danger then of using a hard pulling mill? You'd think if it makes the dog work harder, that would build more strength or endurance, which we usually see as good things for performance.
The author argues strongly against it. And this is another one of those counterintuitive insights. On a hard pulling mill, the dog has to gallop instead of running freely.
Gallop, okay.
The constant resistance forces a less natural, more taxing gait. And what often happens, he says, is the dog will just stop and stand after galloping. Shows clear signs of muscular exhaustion, not that controlled oxygen deficiency they're aiming for.
Right. Different kind of tired.
Totally different. And, more critically, if you do your 10-day pre-keep on a hard pulling mill, you won't prepare the dog for the contest at all. You'll just condition the dog to gallop the treadmill. You're essentially teaching it to fight the machine.
Not conditioning it for efficient, sustained effort.
Exactly. It's learning the wrong skill. On a hard pulling mill, the dog doesn't get any rest on top tugging at a gallop. Even if it's fit enough to walk after galloping, it still doesn't get true rest because it's always tugging against that resistance, even at a walk.
So there's no real recovery phase on the machine itself.
None. Which means you're actually overworking the dog from day one, pushing it into an anaerobic state too soon, too often. You condition it to run the treadmill, not prepare for the contest.
And the impact in a real contest.
Severe, according to the source. The dog will hit a higher heart rate than conditioned during the keep, meaning it enters uncharted territory of stress right there in the pit. It'll also likely take bottom much sooner, needing to rest, because of this chronic overwork and the lack of true recovery during its training.
Wow. So it's not just a preference for equipment, it's a fundamental difference in how the dog's body responds and adapts. The hard pulling mill forces constant resistance, turning dynamic conditioning into a strength challenge that actually works against the goal of oxygen efficiency.
Absolutely. It's like training a marathon runner by having them always push a heavy sled. They might get strong legs.
But not efficient for the long run, not fast.
Precisely. A truly critical distinction. The author also highlights this practice of an ice-cold start.
Ice cold.
Yeah. After that initial 5-minute walk to empty out, the dog goes on the mill, ice cold, straight into 3 to 6 minutes on top, meaning at its working pace, no warm-up.
Why would you do that? Sounds harsh.
It mimics starting the contest ice cold. The logic is actually quite brilliant. When the dog does warm up in the actual contest, eventually hitting MS, it will feel incredibly strong and prepared because it has experienced that exact sensation, starting cold, then quickly ramping up every single day of the keep.
Ah, so it removes the shock factor.
Exactly. It's both psychological and physiological preparation for the immediate high demands right at the start of the contest. Like a competitive swimmer diving into a cold pool, they've trained for that shock, so it's not a debilitating shock anymore. It's expected.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, beyond the meticulous work and the right equipment, there's this whole other piece of the puzzle. Just as vital, maybe even more surprising, what goes into the diet. And it sounds incredibly specific right down to one particular prescription dog food.
It is indeed. The source emphasizes KD prescription dog food as absolutely critical. Can't be overstated, according to the author.
KD, like for kidney issues.
Yes, that's the one. He says it's very important and is prescription specifically because of the cobalt in it.
Cobalt. What does cobalt do in this context?
Well, think of cobalt as a key component for boosting red blood cell production. More red blood cells mean better oxygen carrying capacity in the blood.
Ah, tying back to oxygen efficiency again.
Exactly. More oxygen getting ferried to the muscles, to the brain, even under extreme duress. The author goes so far as to say, there's no way you can condition maximum stress using any other dog food.
Wow, that's a strong statement.
It is.
Yeah.
And it's not just the cobalt. It's also crucially about what isn't in KD. He states most other dog foods have so much animal fat and meat Y products.
And those are bad for this method.
Detrimental, according to him, particularly because they contribute to the dog heating up too quickly during exertion.
So it's as much about avoiding certain things as it is about including others, like a very specific, almost minimalist approach to performance nutrition.
That's a good way to put it. KD is primarily used as a filler, he says, alongside a very specific feed sheet from his book. So it indicates a precise balance with other nutrients is also needed, and its physiological impact is described as profound. It helps prepare the dog for peak condition, allowing it to build up what he calls life-sustaining reserve energy.
Life-sustaining reserve energy.
Yeah.
What exactly is that?
It sounds like a specialized, highly efficient metabolic fuel, not just regular body fat, almost like a carefully engineered superfuel reserve the body creates under these specific conditions of diet and exercise. And it's used after the dog comes down from maximum stress, a crucial buffer against total exhaustion.
Fascinating.
And interestingly, as you noted, he mentions this diet is also used for dogs with bad kidneys and older dogs to give them longevity, which hints at its general systemic health benefits beyond just contest performance. It's about creating a robust, efficient internal system overall.
That's a really interesting crossover, a diet that promotes general health and efficiency, which then translates into peak performance. What about fats and cooling? Those are always huge factors for any athlete.
Absolutely critical here. The author strongly emphasizes no added animal fat in the diet from other sources. That's key to preventing unnecessary heating during intense work. The life-sustaining fat is different. It's built internally by the KD diet, combined with sufficient recovery time.
Oh, okay.
This inside fat is described as quick-burning energy, used and replaced daily under stressful conditions, and it serves as the very last energy source before potential mild shock. So too much work or not enough rest uses up this critical reserve, leaving the dog vulnerable.
And water, obviously crucial. Any specific guidance there?
Huge emphasis. He stresses never take a dog's water, ever. The correct, ample amount of water is crucial for internal cooling and for allowing the dog to breathe freely throughout the activity. Free conditioning, he claims, allows the dog to breathe freely throughout the fight, resulting in no hot spot.
No hot spot, meaning no localized overheating.
Exactly. No specific area getting dangerously hot, which can really compromise performance. It's a common issue in high-intensity efforts. So the water intake goes hand in hand with the diet to maintain optimal body temperature.
Are there any other dietary do's and don'ts mentioned? Things that might surprise us? Maybe common things people feed dogs?
Well, he mentions cornflakes are fine to feed, says they won't hurt him, suggests certain simple carbs are acceptable, probably for quick energy.
Okay, cornflakes.
But leafy greens, like spinach or kale, avoid them.
Yeah.
Due to their high sulfur content, which he says is very hard on a dog's kidneys on a daily use during this kind of intensive conditioning.
Interesting. Didn't know about sulfur and greens being tough on kidneys like that.
And for people wondering about adding extra vitamin K supplements, maybe for blood clotting, the author says to stop. Because the correct diet, this whole balanced system, provides everything needed. He uses this analogy. You can only put so much rain in a rain barrel, implying the body has limits to what it can absorb and use. Over-supplementing just disrupts the delicate balance they're trying to achieve. The tailored diet is sufficient.
It really highlights that intricate connection between nutrition and physiological efficiency. It's not just calories or protein, it's specific nutrients, the absence of others, all working together to optimize oxygen, temperature, metabolism at a cellular level.
It's a highly refined, perfectly calibrated internal engine they're building.
We've covered the work, the equipment, the diet, but there's a third leg to this stool. And according to the source, it's just as important, maybe even more important, than the entire 37 days of conditioning. And that's the power of rest.
Yes.
Which really challenges that no days off, grind harder mentality we hear so often.
This is such a critical insight, and it runs completely counter to that more is always better approach in so much training, whether it's animals or humans. A solid base of condition, he says, is only achieved when the dog reaches its fixed work time because of that bad recovery signal, and then rests correctly.
Rests correctly, so even the rest is managed.
Oh, absolutely. Even during this crucial rest period, that daily respiration check, checking the heart rate, remains vital. Though he notes slight fluctuations during rest are normal, of no consequence, the body's still fine-tuning.
But here's where it gets really interesting to me. The part about the final days right before a contest. The source states, and I'm quoting here, 3 days correctly resting the dog is the only real preparation for the fight night and is equally important as the previous 37 days of keep.
Think about that. Equally important as all the work that came before.
So the final sprint. It isn't a sprint at all. It's a careful, calculated slowdown.
Absolutely. He describes a progressive reduction, cutting the work in half 3 days before the match, then cutting that in half again 2 days before. The balance is incredibly delicate. He warns, not enough rest or too much rest has the same effect on your dog.
Both are bad. How?
Both allow maximum stress, that energy deficiency state, to show up in the fight sooner than you expected. It emphasizes that rest isn't just passive time off. It's an active, precise component of the conditioning. It's the supercompensation period where the body consolidates all the gains.
Like baking a cake. You do all the mixing, the prep, but if you don't let it bake properly and then, crucially, cool properly, it won't be right.
That's a perfect analogy. The cooling, the resting, is just as vital as the baking, the working.
So what's the precise purpose of this meticulously managed rest? What's actually happening inside the dog during this critical phase?
Okay, several key things. The primary purpose is to retain the rate of conversion of nutrients into energy that all that millwork painstakingly created.
Keep that efficiency high.
Exactly. Without adequate rest, that hard-earned efficiency, that ability to quickly turn fuel into power, it would just diminish. It also allows the dog's body to properly store that inside fat. We talked about the quick-burning energy. Use and replace daily under stress.
Right. Top up the special fuel tank.
Precisely. Furthermore, it helps the dog retain fluid at a controlled rate, vital for free breathing during the fight, vital for preventing those hot spots.
Okay.
And, crucially, he notes that when work is progressively cut back like this, the dog won't gain any weight match day all day, which indicates a perfectly balanced system. Energy expenditure meets optimal intake, no excess weight is accumulated, peak leanness and efficiency are maintained right up to the event.
It just underscores that critical principle, often overlooked. The body needs time to adapt and consolidate gains made during stress. Without proper recovery, you're not just risking injury.
You're actively undermining the very adaptations you work so hard to achieve. It's during rest that the physiological benefits truly manifest. Muscles repair, energy stores replenish, the whole system recalibrates to a higher, more efficient baseline.
Okay, so now we understand the how, the routine, the gear, the food, and the critical role of rest. Let's dive into the why. What's happening inside the dog's body, systemically, cellularly, that makes this free conditioning so uniquely effective? Seems like it revolves around oxygen and regulation.
Indeed. It all comes back to oxygen, really. As the heart rate increases at the start of a contest, the blood becomes more and more oxygen deficient. This, according to the source, is the very beginning of MS.
Okay.
And here's a key distinction he makes. When a dog falters or breaks stride, it's primarily because the brain is becoming oxygen deficient, perhaps even more so than the rest of the body. It's a central nervous system fatigue signal.
The brain needs oxygen most critically.
Absolutely. And what's fascinating is the acknowledgement that, yeah, under normal conditions, blood leaving the heart isn't perfectly equally distributed everywhere. And that's fine for just daily life.
Right.
But during MS, during that extreme exertion, that distribution becomes absolutely critical. So the overall goal of this conditioning is to prepare the dog to delay that rise in body temperature and delay the onset of significant debilitating oxygen deficiency. It's about optimizing the entire circulatory system to perform under extreme demand, making sure vital organs, especially the brain, get enough oxygen for longer.
So the conditioned heart rate advantage we talked about, that's really the core of the system, isn't it? Training the heart to beat super fast until the dog breaks stride in training.
Yes.
So that in the actual contest, the heart rate should never reach a heart rate as high as any day on the mill. That sounds like a cheat code for endurance.
It kind of is. The benefits are profound. A higher average conditioned heart rate means significantly more oxygen circulating in the blood right from the start of the fight. The heart itself is conditioned to pump more blood for longer with less relative effort.
Which shortens recovery time.
Dramatically, all due to this incredible heart health and efficiency. And the result? The dog literally never experiences uncharted territory physiologically during the contest.
Because it's been there, done that, recovered from it every day.
Exactly. It has already mastered and recovered from that exact state daily during conditioning. This, the author states flatly, is the key to conditioning a dog. It's like an experienced marathon runner who knows their pace, their body, their limits inside out, versus a novice who just hits an unexpected wall. The conditioned dog has massively expanded its physiological comfort zone for extreme exertion.
That makes so much sense. You train so thoroughly that the actual event feels less demanding than the training itself. What about temperature regulation and cooling in this specific context? Heat is always such a massive factor.
Huge. The source explains that body temperature really only rises significantly when MS, that highest conditioned heart rate, is truly reached. Free conditioning, combined with that correct water intake we discussed,
Right. Never restrict water.
plays a crucial role in delaying this temperature rise. Keeps the dog cooler, longer. And a cooler dog operating at MS translates directly to shorter recovery time. It allows the dog to finish the match seemingly with energy to spare, looking like it never stopped fighting the whole fight. Preventing that overheating is vital as it leads to rapid fatigue, even organ issues.
This really does flip the script on what many people assume is beneficial training, because the source is emphatic. Strength conditioning of any kind is not preparation for the contest. That goes against so much conventional wisdom, even in human athletics, where strength training is often seen as fundamental.
It's a stark contrast.
Yeah.
The author argues quite forcefully that strength conditioning leads to a much higher heart rate in the pit than was ever conditioned at home.
Higher. Why?
Because strength work builds muscle bulk, slow-twitch fibers perhaps, which are less efficient for oxygen delivery during sustained rapid movements. It makes the heart work harder for the same output in the contest environment. This causes the dog to become oxygen deficient much sooner.
Okay.
The entire fight, he points out, consists predominantly of fast muscle twitch exercise. That's how these contests are won: explosive, repeated actions. Strength conditioning, he argues, simply doesn't prepare the muscles or the cardiovascular system for that specific type of work.
So it's about optimizing for efficiency and sustained output in that specific physiological zone.
Yes.
Not building bulk or raw power that could actually hinder oxygen flow and lead to premature exhaustion. Like the difference between a powerlifter and a boxer are both strong, but for totally different applications.
Excellent analogy. It's about agility, sustained speed, efficient energy conversion, not just raw static power. And that life-sustaining fat we discussed earlier, the bonus energy.
Right, the internal fuel reserve.
Yeah, that's intrinsically tied into this too. Free conditioning automatically helps store this vital reserve, whereas just adding daily fat supplements would likely be used up inefficiently or contribute to overheating. When built correctly through the diet and recovery, this inside fat actually helps the body cool, providing clean, long-burning energy.
It all leads to this idea of the owner becoming a competitor with confidence.
Yes, because they know they've done absolutely everything possible through superior conditioning. The author even says, quite profoundly, "My fight is with conditioning my dog, not with my adversary."
Wow.
It's an internal battle, won through meticulous preparation, not just hoping the dog is tougher.
Okay, we've got the how, the why. Let's get to the ultimate test. How does all this meticulous preparation actually manifest when, the paw hits the pit? What does this look like in a real-world scenario, according to the source?
Right, this is where the theory meets reality, often with pretty dramatic results. A free-conditioned dog, he says, will run cooler, longer. It'll take significantly longer to raise its heart rate to the point of performing at MS. In fact, if the conditioning is truly great, he suggests it might never fully heat up, never reach its conditioned MS, maybe never even break stride significantly during the contest. It recovers with energy to spare, often winning while the adversary is visibly struggling. That's the ideal. An animal performing with apparent ease, even under extreme duress.
And there's that surprising twist about reaching MS first. The source says most dogs that reach MS first usually lose.
Right.
Because it is not a conditioned MS. It's just unmanageable, chaotic oxygen deficiency. That feels so counterintuitive for a competition.
It does, but it makes sense in this context. Whereas a well-conditioned dog, it might reach MS at the same time as its opponent, but for them, there will be no stress involved with oxygen absorption
Why no stress?
because it was freely conditioned for that exact state. It's like they're both in the same high-pressure situation, maybe a deep-sea dive, but one is a seasoned professional diver with all the training and acclimatization.
And the other just jumped in the deep end.
Exactly. The conditioned dog is operating in a familiar zone. The unconditioned one is in total physiological panic. And the dog's daily recovery, observed by the owner via heart rate, that becomes the key indicator for how it will handle that battle stress. It's the owner's constant reminder throughout the keep. Pay attention to recovery.
So the competition becomes a test of the preparation, not just raw aggression or talent.
Precisely. The
Yeah.
source also stresses preparing the blood itself. It says you need to prepare the blood with the right nutrients to achieve the correct blood count to absorb as much oxygen as possible.
Which goes right back to the diet, the KD food, the cobalt.
Absolutely. It all connects. The higher the average heart rate you condition and recover from properly, the more oxygen carrying capacity the blood has at the start. At the same time, you're conditioning the heart to pump more blood, longer, with less effort.
Shortens recovery time.
Significantly, due to great heart health. Which means, again, the dog never experiences uncharted territory physiologically during the contest. And that, he repeats, is the key to conditioning a dog. The blood isn't just passive fluid, it's a vital component you actively prime for maximum performance.
It really emphasizes that for this author, the fight is won way before it even begins. In the weeks and months of meticulous preparation, he even says he prefers winning against bite, ability, gameness, and any bloodline.
Yeah, basically saying conditioning trumps all those other factors.
Stating the outcome is ultimately up to the dog once the owner has done their part with the conditioning. It's about optimizing that potential.
It's a powerful affirmation of preparation over just raw, unrefined, natural attributes. The confidence comes from knowing you've done absolutely everything possible to optimize the animal's internal systems. A free-conditioned dog, progressively rested, will take longer to hit MS because it runs cooler, if it does that well enough.
It might never heat up, never reach MS, never break stride.
Exactly. Potentially never even need a significant recovery during the whole contest. That's the ultimate expression of this method.
Yeah?
Maintaining optimal performance without ever hitting a wall, making the opponent's struggles the only real variable left.
Wow, what an incredible deep dive. I mean, into a truly unique approach to conditioning. We've really seen a masterclass in optimization here, haven't we?
Absolutely.
This isn't about working harder in the usual sense. It's about working smarter, truly understanding the intricate feedback loops of a living system to get peak sustainable performance. From that methodical daily feedback of heart rate and recovery to the absolutely crucial role of precise rest, that very specific KD diet, and the profound focus on physiological efficiency over just brute strength. It all comes together in a really insightful way. It highlights that the hidden variables, cellular respiration, blood oxygenation, they're far more impactful than just visible muscle.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, what we've really explored today is a comprehensive system designed to minimize physiological unknowns and maximize predictable high-level output. It's a testament to the power of observation, adaptation, and just unwavering consistency in pursuit of a very defined physiological state.
Yeah.
It's about building a robust, highly efficient internal engine, not just a strong exterior. It fundamentally redefines what it means to be prepared by shifting the emphasis away from just enduring stress towards preventing debilitating stress by having already mastered it.
This whole deep dive was focused on conditioning a dog, using this very specific source. But it definitely raises a broader question for anyone listening, doesn't it? What areas in your life could benefit from such a methodical, data-driven approach to preparation and recovery?
Good question.
Where could you meticulously balance stress with the right support, the right rest, the right fuel, rather than just pushing through until you eventually break? Think about it, whether you're training for a marathon, getting ready for a huge presentation, or honestly just aiming for sustained energy and clarity in your daily life. Where could applying a conditioned heart rate mindset, that idea of mastering stress in training so the event feels manageable, where could that change your game?